The fact that you think hoodies are something the kids do, I think that just further confirms that you're just fine wearing what you think is cool because you ain't gonna accidentally stumble into the what the kids are doing area of fashion.
What's up, boss? This is Abraham's wallet. We span the gap between the austerity of obedience to God and the prosperity rising from faithfulness. Run your home and your dough like a biblical boss.
Mark, have you just come from the country club? You kind of got a what would I call that? An elitist kind of a look. Whenever somebody's wearing white, do you think you're better than everybody?
Well, I'd prefer not to answer that question, but I can tell you that I did not just come from the country club.
Okay.
This is just it's a quarter zip. So you're right. It's a country club-ish apparel option.
Quarter zip, sure. And I just want to confess to the people who are watching, I find it unbecoming when an older person, a middle-aged person, dresses like a young person. I inherited this disdain from my mother, who doesn't like it when mothers try to dress like their children. But I feel that the hoodie I'm wearing today, and it looks like it's like a jersey kind of a look today. It's not. This is a middle-aged man's vest that I'm wearing over a hoodie, which maybe maybe I've aged out of hoodies. Do you think I'm allowed to wear hoodies?
Absolutely, you have not aged out of hoodies.
Okay.
And the fact that you think hoodies are something the kids do, I think that just further confirms that you're just fine wearing what you think is cool because you ain't gonna accidentally stumble into the what the kids are doing area of fashion.
Okay, that's fair enough. But, I knew a guy once, he was in his 70s and he wore Converse All-Stars. And I thought,
Can I share a brief anecdote?
Sure.
You're familiar with Josh McDowell, the famous speaker. And
I was bragging about him this week.
Great guy.
Yeah.
Everything I know about Josh, I think there's been some controversies that tried to nab him on something.
Oh, no.
But everything I know about Josh McDowell has been positive and seems to have raised great kids too. He had a daughter that went to high school with us in Texas. And so he would be around once in a while. And all good things to say, except I have to confess, the man, this was in the day of FUBU and Tommy Hilfiger. And Josh McDowell is, God bless him, he's kind of a shorter, more portly man. And he would show up in these like hot candy apple red shorts that left about 3 inches of ankle at the bottom, and maybe a pair of Jordans and a big old polo shirt that went down to the knees.
Oh no.
So it wasn't it was so aggressive that I thought, is this a shtick? Is this comedy? I still don't know the answer to that, but I always think Josh McDowell did it so hard that it might actually be okay.
Maybe he figured, I can read the culture so well that I control the culture. I'm like the Truman Show. I'm in charge of everything, and I can do no wrong culturally.
Yeah, that's possible.
Yeah.
It makes me smile still to think about Grandpa Josh showing up to the football game in his
That's terrible
FUBU.
Let me ask you something.
Ask it.
Okay. Did you know that we did a episode on weddings last week?
2 weeks ago, yes.
2 weeks ago? Oh, yeah, we did. Well, when this airs, it will have been 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
Did you know that the people really liked our episode on weddings?
I heard that it just jumped off the screen at them and they couldn't stop clicking it.
Yeah. We always, I wouldn't say we're here for clicks, but we pay attention to what the people like. We want to be useful. And I'm just wondering aloud, do you think it was because we gave the people great tips for managing money towards a wedding? Yes or no?
I think that people wanted to hear about that topic, and we gave them our best effort on it. I also think that whenever your wife or my wife has shown their beautiful face on our podcast, the clicks roll in. So I don't know if that
Well, I
was
was going
something
to
to do
ask
with
you
it
about
too.
5 questions about why we think people
Okay,
tuned
okay.
in.
I'm sorry. You just start over. Question
Do you
number
think that
one.
do
Yes,
you,
I
do you
do.
think that it was because we gave people good financial oversight?
Yes, I think that was part of it.
Do you think it was because we gave them some great ideas of ways to celebrate their children who might be having weddings someday?
I feel like I'm being catechized, but yes,
Do you
I do.
do, do you think it was because they were relieved to see a pretty woman on our podcast as opposed to two ugly dudes who might not be as easy on the eyes but are the picture of masculinity?
Well, I'm not sure that thought went through their brains, but I think they were pleasantly surprised when they saw these ladies.
Do you
Really just
think
this one lady.
Do you think it was because my wife teased us with stories of the fabulously wealthy and how they throw a party?
I mean, that could they have known that that was coming when they clicked? I don't know. They got it, and I bet they liked it.
Yeah. Well,
Maybe
the
that's
one
why they shared it.
well that's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking. Well, I I would say to you and to the people that this isn't going to turn into a weddings podcast, but we could take as deep a dive on that subject as we wanted because the material is never ending on that subject. And there's a lot to say on it. So we may revisit it in the future, but we're glad that people enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's interesting too because I just while you were talking went over to YouTube and the video poor performer on YouTube, which means all you people just listening to our voices haven't actually gone and seen either Steven's lovely wife or what does a portrait of masculinity look like. Some of
Right,
you probably don't even know what we look like, and
right.
so
I made reference last week or the week before about being in the treehouse, and maybe they never got to see me in the treehouse, which is sad.
you love
But
that treehouse.
I'll throw out here that we we never say this, and maybe we are irresponsible not to say it, but it's a fact that if you do the likes and subscribing things wherever you're consuming this, that's good. That goes good for everybody, and so we do like that. We just never mention it.
Yeah, if you shared the wedding one, maybe there's other things you want to share. So that's always a huge help to us. You can also give us reviews. That's a huge booster to us.
Oh, we love a review.
But yeah, it's really fun. Even it's not just that episode. The past few, say 2 months, have been some of our biggest listening months ever. So
Well,
thank you.
I'll just throw this out. I know the way that I am, and if I like a podcast, I just leave it alone. I don't do anything. And if I don't like something, like if my Airbnb goes poorly, I leave reviews like crazy. I'm very specific. I start taking photographs, and maybe that's you. But I would say, gosh, if you kind of appreciate what we do here, a simple one-line review. I like these guys. 5 stars. That would be great. We would appreciate that.
We were having Indian food the other day, Stephen, and they had
I'm very interested in the rest of this story. I like what you're saying.
okay. I don't know if that's allowed, but we
No
were
accents. No, there's no human accents allowed. Have we reached
yeah.
that point in our culture where we can't
I'll allow it.
say
I'll
that
allow
anyone
it.
has an accent? Okay.
But they took our order on a little electronic handheld thing, and it was all done right there. And we paid with the waiter, and then he leans over to my wife, and he goes, "Could you leave me a review for how I did today?" And there was stars, and my wife, she's a lovely person, but she really hates to be asked for things like this on the spot. And so she goes, "Sure," and clicks 4 stars. And she later repented. She's like, "Yeah, I should have just given him 5. He probably," because he was saying, "Well, I get a bonus based on how many like great reviews I get." So it was a little awkward all around, but I don't know. If you want to leave a 4-star review, you can. You don't have to leave a 5-star review, but I'm hoping that by saying that, I'm increasing the chances that you will choose to leave a 5-star review.
But if you want to stick it to us, you have a golden opportunity there.
Maybe we need to just offend the people who we don't want to like the podcast so that they'll leave a negative review and we can do a whole episode on comments from the haters.
Oh, well, we have done comments from people before, and I enjoyed a lot. Probably people don't enjoy it as much as they like actual financial help, but I enjoy
Well,
it.
let's give them some of that.
Okay. I'll set you up by saying this. We started down a wonderful trail, a yellow brick road of financial education 2 episodes ago. So if you're doing the YouTube thing right now, you can see right here there's a link. It's right here. There's a link to the intro episode where you gave us an overview of where we're going to go on this series called The Critical Skills of Money. And then in the subsequent episode, that's the one that's right here. That is the episode where you covered the first most important skill of managing money, of being a financial expert, and that is acquiring money, which I think is
getting some money.
I think that's totally appropriate. So once you have yourself a bundle of that money, what's the next thing that we need to know?
Well, you know, Proverbs 27:23, do you know what it says?
No.
You mentioned it last week.
Shoot.
It says, "Know well the condition of your flocks."
Oh, I
and
love it.
Give attention to your herds.
Yes.
And so we're going to take a break from talking about money and we're going to talk about livestock on this episode.
Okay.
Not really, but the principle here is that once you have something that is wealth, which flocks and herds would be wealth to the readers of the Proverbs originally, it's not enough to just assume that it's going fine. You're supposed to actively be watching over those resources and assets, income streams, all of that. You're supposed to know the condition of your fill in the blank properties, assets, investment accounts, etc. So,
right.
Critical skill number 2, once you've got some money, is oversight. How do you keep watch over that with which you have been entrusted?
Okay. So I'd like to throw this out to the people as a pop quiz before we begin. If I asked you, we met for coffee and I said, "Hey, I'm your trusted brother. This isn't about comparison or performance or anything. I'm just checking in on you. Tell me your net worth right now." Could you answer that question? If I said, "What is your cost of living monthly? What does it cost you in your home? Everything. You're all in. What does it cost you to live monthly?" Okay. And how much do you bring in that you don't spend on lifestyle in a month? How much is left over for savings and investments? Do you know that number? Oh, okay. Do you know whether your home has gained value in the last 12 months? Do you know what that is? These are the kind of check-ins that I think many, many, many men would kind of go, I would have to talk to somebody, because they don't, in response to that verse, they don't know the conditions of their flocks. And if we are saying that money is definitely one of the things that we're responsible for, then you're going to be talking us through how can we be more responsible and keep a watch over these things. So I throw that on as a kind of pulse check that I think would probably out a lot of people that simply wouldn't know the answers to those questions.
Yeah, that's good. So I've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things under this area of oversight. And the first one's not going to surprise anybody who knows what we're about here. But if we look at Luke 14:28 through 30, it says, "For which of you, desiring to build a tower, does not first sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid a foundation and is not able to finish, all who see it begin to mock him, saying, 'This man began to build and was not able to finish.'" And I think, maybe I'm biased here. I believe in planning. I mean, this is what you and I both spend a lot of our week on, is helping families with financial planning, with vision planning. And so, Stephen, maybe just talk us through what we think the order of planning looks like for the families that are saying,
Sure.
we have no plans. What should we do first?
Sure. I'll try to hit this as quickly as I can. Many people who want financial planning. They want a financial planner to make them a financial plan. They want to be able to say, here's what our income is, and here's where our investment money is. Write us a plan. And you go, okay, we're going to make you this much money over the next year, and you need to buy this insurance, and I think you'll be in good shape. And that's not what we believe. We don't think that that's a good way to go about things. We think we should start with this question: why did God make you? Might sound a little bit presumptuous, like, oh, who do we think we are? Well, I'll tell you who we think we are. We think we're servants of families that God puts together. So we believe there's a reason that he put a husband with a wife. And we think that you have gifts and callings, which when they're combined, create something never before seen on planet Earth. And we think that that combination creates a specific calling. So what we want to do with people is we want to help them unearth, is one of our magic words, to unearth what is that thing. I don't want to make it up. We're not creating it. We want to say what's already there. What did God put in you? Why did he put you together as a family? Can we articulate that? If we can articulate that, then we have that's our magic vision statement. That's very important to us, because from the vision statement, we create goals. Well, what are the spiritual goals, the relational goals, the physical goals, the intellectual goals, and the financial goals that would flow out of that vision for someone's life? Once we have articulated some goals, then that's when Mark puts on his genius hat and he starts tinkering in the lab and going, how can we make the money achieve those goals so that we can fulfill that vision? So we start with vision. And we think that if you are managing money, if you have a pile of money, the question isn't, what would I like to do with money? The question is, what did God make you to do and be? Who did he call you to be? And then we want the money to serve those purposes in the earth. And I'll throw out, if we have any new listeners that don't know this, we give to our clients access to a course that we wrote that helps you walk through this process and unearth it. We also let people who are not our clients have access to that course. I thought today would be a good reason to throw out a little shout out to the course. You can go to outpostadvisors.net and you'll find a little tab at the top that takes you there, or you can go to outpostadvisors.net/courses, and it will take you to our vision course. And guess what I'm doing today, Mark? I'm going to just mark that right down for anybody listening. What do you think?
You going to throw them a big fat discount?
Yeah, I'm going to throw them a discount. I say, why not? If you will, since this is part of the Critical Skills of Money series that we're walking through, if you'll stick in critical skills as your magic little code word, we'll give you 25% off on that course right now. So we think that vision thing is a really important is a really important thing for you to have before you start down planning and what you're going to do with money. We think you need to know why you're here.
Yeah, that's good. So I'm about to get to maybe the thing that you thought I was going to talk about for the whole episode, which is budgeting.
Eh,
But I just want to reinforce, I think planning is like so critical as a foundational level. It's more important than being able to multiply money. So we're going to talk about multiplication next week. And I would say past a basic level, like where you have food and shelter and things like that, planning, might be more important even than acquisition, like your ability to make money. Because I see all the time people who are really good at making money, but they don't have any purpose and don't understand why they're getting it. So they really are unable to create a budget, a budget or a plan for where they're going to put it and how they're going to use it. And it just tends to kind of evaporate. So you've heard the verse that says, without vision, the people perish. I will say, without vision and a plan, budgets are oppressive and get thrown in the trash can. So that's why we start with planning when we talk about oversight.
I also love this statement. I don't know if I'm repeating what you just said, but I think it's super sticky. Your budget doesn't matter if it isn't funding a plan for your family vision. I think that's a great statement.
Yeah. I talk about budgets being a funding plan for family visions all the time.
That's great.
Because most people's experience with budgets is that it's the document that tells me what I'm not allowed to do that I want to do. I want to go out to eat, and I'm not allowed to because I have to invest in my IRA. If that's it, then I would argue your budget is not going to be long for this world because you're going to throw it away at some point. Okay.
Great.
So budgeting. This is kind of our modern equivalent of keeping watch over our flocks. We know how much is coming in, how much is going out, what we need to take out of it to meet our basic needs now, and how we're thinking about putting some where we're going to let this grow. And there's just a few, we've done whole episodes, which Steven will maybe link somewhere. I'm going to wave my hands around. There might be an episode link or two.
I don't think we have. Are you talking about budgeting?
Yeah.
I don't think we have a video episode on budgeting.
Oh, and we have to have videos. That's right.
Well, yeah, for it to be a visual link.
Great. Well, we have done episodes on budgeting. We'll try to drop a few links to those in the show notes.
That we can do.
So I'm not going to go into a deep budgeting dive, but let me give you just a few key tips.
You know what? I hate to go backwards, but I want to make crystal clear what you were saying about vision. Okay. Yeah. So you said that most people see their budget as the thing that they're not allowed to do. We can't go out to eat because we're funding our IRA. That's the kind of lifeless world of most financial plans. What we're interested in is people having such a vision for their lives that they would say, and I'm totally making this up, and if this doesn't turn your crank, then it doesn't apply to you. But for somebody to say, we want to be rescuers of children, and so we have this vision of establishing an orphanage in Costa Rica. So that's the reason that we have to say no to some baseline things, because we believe so strongly in creating this orphanage, and we know the nut that we're going to have. We have to have this chunk of money to do that thing. That's why we're not going out to eat tonight. And it doesn't feel like punishment. It feels like you're turning the key that opens a gate into your vision of the thing that you want to do. And so if all you have budgeting wise is, well, the guy said our 401ks should be a little bit bigger, then it is onerous and it is not fun. But if you have a vision for your life, which is there's a thing that we're going after that matters more to us than having a $10 meal as opposed to a $50 meal, then it feels like, man, I'm so willing to pay this price. It feels like going to the gym and going like, yeah, I'll go to the gym because there's something I love more than having on extra weight. And it's the idea of being there for my grandchildren. And so I'm happy to pay that price. So I just wanted to make that very practical, what you're saying.
Yeah, and just for clarity's sake, it doesn't always have to be some mega spiritual. We're all
True.
going to move to Africa and be missionaries. Sometimes it's just God created us a certain way, and we as a family, man, we get fired up going to the Jazz game, and so
Yes,
we're going to have season tickets, and we're going to not go eat at fancy restaurants, or we're going to skip our ski passes because we did that and it really didn't give us as much joy as we thought
that's
it would.
right.
It can be all sorts of things. People are always asking me, is my grocery budget reasonable? And I say, well, you can spend $500 a month on groceries, or you can spend $3,500, and neither one is wrong or
Yes,
right. It's, are you spending money that lines up with your unique vision for life? And once you get that sorted, then you can move on to what I'm about to talk about, which is, okay, I've got a vision. I know what I'm after. Now, how do I align my money in a way that powers that vision?
great.
And just real quick, couple quick tips. Budget to zero, meaning we don't say, well, let's just budget the big categories. I make $10,000 a month, but I'd like to just put a budget together for sort of 60% of that money.
Right.
My mortgage, my car payment, my grocery budget, those are big, so we'll put those in. And then we'll just do miscellaneous for $4,000 of it. I would say that if you're doing this, you don't know where you're actually putting money. And this is where I see people, like, when we do create a budget that's actually accounts for every dollar. This is critical to being good stewards. If you don't think of this as your money, but this is actually the king's resources, and the king asks for an accounting, what are you doing with the money I'm sending your way? And you say, well, here's what I'm doing with 60% of it, and the other, it goes away every month. And I work with all sorts of families at all sorts of income levels, and I'll tell you, making a lot or making a little doesn't really make you any more or less likely to be
Mhm.
in this sloppy budgeting bucket. So
That's for sure.
a lot of times we work with families who are wealthy and they have a lot of income, and so they're never at risk of not being able to make basic payments on bills and things like that. But when we go through this, they go, holy cow, we are putting so much money to stuff that's not what our vision is, and it doesn't even give us that much joy. And so budgeting to zero, very important. Second tip, use rollover budgets, or some people call them sinking funds. So a lot of people get their budget all dialed in. They'll look back at a few months of expenses and they'll go, okay, I know what I'm spending. And then I made a call before this episode started to the appliance repair company. And so I haven't spent any money at the appliance repair company in the past year, but I have a broken appliance. So I need them to come out. Well, that's a one-time deal, but you need to account for that stuff in your budget. So the example I usually use is insurance. You probably pay for your car insurance once or twice a year. But if you don't budget for it, then where is the money coming from if you're
Yeah.
going this budget to zero route? So I'll just take categories like that, whether it's home improvement or insurance or medical, and I'll say, what do we expect to spend in a year? Divide that by 12. And then each month we're budgeting that much, and it's rolling over. So depending on when I pay the insurance bill, it might be negative or it might be positive, but once a year it's going to be zero in that budget because I budgeted $1,200 a year for auto insurance, $100 a month, and I'm going to pay that bill, and it'll be square once a year. Does that make sense?
Yeah. How often do you come across families that you're really impressed with how faithful they are to well, I probably 80% of it is saying that they have a budget that you respect. When you look at it, you go, yep, that's everything. And if you follow this, you're going to be good. How many families do that?
I would say it's probably in the 10 to 20% range of families that really are doing it and have been doing it a while. Because what I do see when somebody calls a financial planner, sometimes they're on a real heater and they're ready for getting
Yeah.
everything in order. And your budget can't be something you spend 15 hours a month on. Otherwise,
Yes.
unless you're just a freak, then most people will get burnt out on that. So different families are going to budget differently. Some people are just Excel nerds and they want to spend more time and be super detailed. Other people are going to go, we're going to budget every dollar, but we're going to do it in 7 categories instead of 25.
Yeah.
Either one is okay. There's not a right answer there, but yeah.
And if somebody does the work to write out a budget that's to zero, how many of those families that do that work follow through? Most?
That's a good question. I think a lot of people,
Thank you, Mark.
they get burnt out on the administration piece. This is something that our firm is actually trying to solve right now, is for families who just go, man, we have the vision, we like the budget, but we nail it for the first month, we start to get a little bit behind on the second month, and by the third month it's like vanishing off into the horizon.
Yeah.
So we are working on a solution that's actually a kind of a full service offering for those folks. But yeah, I think that's why I am always checking in with people I work with at least once a year. We sit down and go, let's go over the budget. And a lot of times it's, hey, this is just too onerous. Let's make it simpler and let's get it down to, I want less than an hour a month spent on budgeting. Okay. This one's real important, but you got to let your budget dictate your decisions once you've got it dialed in. That doesn't mean you can't ever choose your budget or change your budget, but it does mean once you've got it set and you say, we intend to spend $1,200 a month on groceries, and it's 5 days before the end of the month and you're out of grocery money, don't go steal from the car maintenance budget and say, well, we haven't spent anything on car maintenance. Well, no, you haven't, but that was one of those sinking funds where you're going to have a $3,000 engine replacement needed on your Land Cruiser at some point. So, you need to not touch that, but I see that happen a lot. So you actually have to submit to the budget once you've made it.
Great.
Did I make you feel upset by mentioning the Land Cruiser repair?
I'm at a place of acceptance in my grief. So
Okay.
I'm doing okay.
Okay. Just let me know if we need to back off a little.
Thank you.
And lastly, I just would say consider opening up your budget to other people. So that can be people that you hire, or it can be friends. We've talked about having a personal board of directors where you have some people in your life, ideally from differing socioeconomic levels, that you trust enough to say, hey, will you just take a look at this? And that can really help you avoid some of the pitfalls that I see people fall into. Sometimes it's people who have a poverty mindset and they're just terrified to spend anything. And sometimes, I mean, we've talked about it on here. My wife's a physician. And if I get in a group of doctors, it's easy for me to kind of back up and go, these people, they don't think about money well sometimes if they just are an echo chamber in their own group. And if that was the only people you talk to about money, you might not get good feedback on, are we making sense with the plans we've made for our budget?
Yeah, we'll put in a link to the article about having a board of directors.
Awesome. Next one. I called this piece of the oversight skill acting your wage.
Now, I think that struck me as an incredibly clever title. Have you ever heard that somewhere else?
Yeah, I have. I've seen that all over like financial Twitter and stuff.
Okay,
so
I've never seen that before. That's exactly right. Act your wage.
I can't take credit, but one of the biggest oversight mistakes that I see is that people allow their spending to be dictated by what do I qualify for.
Exactly right.
It drives me bananas when people tell me, well, hey, it turns out we can qualify for new pickup truck and they might
We're
think
looking for an 1,800 square foot house, but we could get this 4,000 square foot house.
Right. And spoiler alert, they will give you more money in loans than you should take,
Yeah, that's right.
generally speaking. So,
And they will let you sign up for dozens of credit cards, and you shouldn't sign up for dozens of credit cards. The financial industry is not created to support your well-being. That's not why they exist. So if they qualify for you something, that does not mean that you should do it.
yeah. So back in, I bet, I haven't done the research here, but I bet if we rewound the clock 100 years, this was less of a problem because you still had the ability to spend all the money you made right away, but it was much harder to rack up $1 million worth of various types of debt to support a lifestyle that you really
Sure.
couldn't afford. You know, today I would say HGTV has convinced people who make $200,000 per year, which is a great stinking income, that
Absolutely.
that they that a $750,000 house, which you then spend $350,000 to renovate, all financed by debt, that's a wise move, and you're gonna at the end of your little personal TV show, you're gonna clap and say, "Look at how much equity we built into this fixer upper." And I see people make that kind of decision all the time because it's normalized and they're just
Yes.
doing the old fashioned keeping up with the Joneses move. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So oversight, the skill of oversight teaches, once you've mastered this, you look at my overall financial picture and I say, there are things that even if our friends do or whatever, we can't or choose not to afford them because we're going somewhere else with our lives. And if you never say that about an expense or a purchase or anything, then you might want to just touch base with your heart and say, am I letting my choices be dictated by what I see around me, or am I being very thoughtful about how I deploy my resources, and am I paying attention to what does my income stream look like and what is wise over time? Am I just spending it all now, or am I exercising oversight?
Yeah, gosh, there's so much to say on this topic. I think of Jesus saying, "Watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. The A man's life does not consist of the abundance of his possessions." And if you're single, you're a young person listening to this, I strongly advise you to build for yourself a life that is built on less. And I don't care if you just got a big corporate job, maybe you have to dress right, dress the part to go to work. Okay, that's fine. But don't go out and get the fanciest apartment that you can so that you can show everybody what a big shot you are. You should have the habit, create a character trait of going without and doing with less. And if you're a newlywed couple, I strongly recommend that you intentionally live on less while you are establishing the precedent of your family. And you don't want the precedent of your family. We go for the gold. We ride first class. If that's what you are establishing as a young couple, you're going to be chasing that tail for the rest of your lives.
That's right.
Much better that you would establish we can be content with little. That's what Paul said, that he knew this secret, and many Americans no longer know this secret. I know how to be content with little. And so if the Lord gives us much, well, we'll extend the our tent pegs, as the scriptures say, and we'll be wise with that money, but we're not going to let that tail wag the dog of what we're called to do. How much can we get? How big can our lives be? How many vacation homes could we have? That is foolish Americanism, and it's not the way we run our lives. So I just have to put in a word here that, like, living below your means is a life skill that should start when you're 15. As soon as you start handling money, you should live below your means. It should be the case if you're a single person before you're married. It should be the case when you're a newly married couple. And so no matter what your income is for the rest of your life, you have this skill that you can use forever. It's a huge thing. And I also have to throw in that I thought of Michael Crichton's wonderful character, Ian Malcolm from Jurassic Park, when he was speaking about budgets. And he said, your scientists have spent so much time wondering what they can do that they never stop to think if they should or not.
Right.
So,
No, that's good. And on this one, I think people might be asking, how is this related to oversight? It sounds like you're just giving me a great talk on being reasonable with my spending. And I just tie it back to that first point about they will give you more money than you should take.
yeah.
And man, I see it in car shopping more than anywhere else. I talk to a lot of people about their need to buy a new car, things like that, and it's smart, wise stewards that still often say things to me about, well, this was the payment that we were targeting, and I think it drives me bananas when I walk into a car dealer and they're like, well, what kind of payment are you looking to get into? And
I hate that question. It drives me up the wall.
because what you're doing there is you're not keeping a good eye on your wealth and then
That's right.
deciding, here's how I'm going to choose to finance it. I'll either use debt wisely or I'll use cash or whatever. That's saying, well, I just want the thing, can I get it?
That's right.
And I'm not keeping an eye on the overarching view. Of course, it goes back to having a plan, etc. So that's how this ties into oversight.
Here, here.
The next one, maybe this is the one that people thought most of this episode was going to be about,
Yes.
which is monitoring I said monitoring investments or keeping an eye on your assets. And this is not about how often you should be checking your Charles Schwab account. I think monitoring assets that you're stewarding extends way beyond looking at your statement from your 401k. It can mean things that are much more physical, like caulking your roof. We have lots of assets in most of us in our culture. You live somewhere. If you own and don't rent, that's something that actually takes monitoring and attention and financial
Oh,
resources.
yes.
Otherwise, it will go to pot.
Yes.
But financial assets are also that way. You need to be thoughtful about, do I know what I'm doing when I look at my financial assets? Am I at risk of somebody coming along and selling me something I don't need? Things like that. So I would say you can hire for almost all of these things, or you can do it yourself, but you're still the one on the hook for the stewardship.
Right.
So that means if you're hiring a financial advisor or you're hiring a handyman or you're hiring an accountant, whatever the role is, because you're like, I need some help in my oversight of a certain area, that's no problem. But you're the one on the hook for is the asset that with which you have been entrusted being watched over appropriately.
Yep.
So because we talk a lot about financial assets, I would say when it comes to an investment portfolio, you should probably start, when you're thinking about how to oversee it well, you should start with, what is the level of work you're both willing and able to do? So if you think about your work 401k, the answer could be, I don't know anything about investing and I don't have any desire to invest time learning about it. That's valuable information. You should probably go with either hiring somebody to help do this for you, or if your only financial asset was just a 401k at work, then it might make sense to just choose a target date fund in your 401k that says, I'm going to retire around this day, and the fund will automatically adjust over time. You don't have to log in and rebalance and things like that. So that's a fair assessment. It's much better than saying, well, I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm just going to pick 5 things and then I'll come back and see if they did well. And in 2 years, maybe I'll pick 5 different things to invest in. Don't do that.
Yes. That's great.
If the answer is, I don't know about this area, but I want to learn about it, then you need to actually be willing to put in that effort. So good intentions don't help you rebalance your portfolio or put a new roof on your rental home. And I would just say this is a spot you have to be very careful, because especially in the world that we are in, Steve, like if you're in this, I want to learn so that I can do spot, that's great. But a lot of people end up going to the wrong sources for education on money
Mm.
stuff. And they end up worse off than if they just paid someone else to do it. So there's a lot of YouTubers that are out there talking about, you know, universal index life insurance policies and how they're the best things since sliced bread. And I'm not here to argue about insurance. We've done that elsewhere, but there's a lot of people with mixed motives that are vying for your attention in the area of how to handle your money. And I would say be circumspect if you're out to get an education. We could probably do a whole episode on where we think trusted places other than the Abraham's Wallet podcast are to get
That would be great.
money learning. And then lastly, you could say, no, I'm an expert on this. You know, personally, I have never slacked off on managing a client's portfolio, and I'd consider myself an expert in managing financial assets. But even so, I have been known to punt from time to time on my family's money accounts because I'm busy doing my job for
Sure.
other people. So we have clients who manage money for their job. They're professional investment people. And they've said, we need somebody to handle this piece because we know that it can slip through the cracks. So just being an expert is not enough. If you're an expert, you just also have to say, I'm going to be diligent to actually do the work. And that can be true. I mean, I know people who are contractors who have a lot of deferred maintenance on their home because they're really busy swinging hammers all day and they get home and they go, I don't want to do that. So be thoughtful here.
Could you tell us a little bit when people say, okay, I want to keep watch over my herds and know the condition of my flocks, but I'm not a financial expert and I think I could probably use a financial advisor's help. Could you give us a little thumbnail sketch of what does a financial advisor do for somebody? What services could they offer that, well, that's what we would do is we would help you keep watch over your flocks. Like what?
Yeah, and this is where the spectrum of what the average financial advisor does is pretty wide. I
Yeah.
think from my angle,
What would you tell people to look for? What could they have? Best
yeah,
case.
it's certainly not just do they manage my investments. It needs to be, is it planning centric? Have they actually taken the time through whatever process to understand who I am and what I'm going after,
Yeah.
and then created a plan that is unique to me? I will tell you, a lot of people have access to pretty slick financial planning tools and can fill in the blanks and hit print and give you a financial plan in 45 minutes.
Yep.
I would argue that's not much of a plan for you. That's more of a Money Magazine article that says, these are the 4 things you need to do to have enough money in retirement.
Yep.
Better than nothing, for sure, but not really a plan. And then I would say, beyond just investments and savings, it's what are the areas of life that need to be watched over at least periodically? And those range from things like insurance. You just heard me kind of make a sideways jab at insurance, but a lot of people are happy to talk to you about insurance because they're really hopeful that they're going to sell you insurance. There's not a ton of people that can help you understand, is the insurance I have appropriate, and is it protect me the way I think it does, and is it correctly priced?
Yeah.
It's really rare to find somebody who will help you with that, who's not trying to sell you insurance. But I think the types of financial planners that you might want to consider, if that's where you're going, they will do that type of thing. Tax planning, I'm going to talk about that in a second, but do you have an idea for how much you're going to owe. Are there ways to minimize taxes? If we go back to our herd example, if I'm a young Jewish shepherd and I think, well, I'm supposed to give 2 cows for every 20 that are born to Caesar here, then do I set those aside, or am I counting on that as a part of the beef I'm going to need to feed my family? That's pretty important. And then there's stuff like even the benefits I get from my job, my workplace. Are those being optimized? Am I thinking about how I want to push money out into the future multi-generationally? So there's a lot of areas of life that I think get missed by financial planners who are mostly out to just manage your wealth and don't do anything else for you. I would if I was interviewing financial planners, I would be pushing really hard into that. What are you going to do for me to help me kind of fulfill this goal of good
Yes,
oversight of my flocks? And my flocks are not just my IRA that you
that's
might
right.
end up managing.
That's right. Okay, sweet.
Okay. Last one. We kind of touched on this with the budgeting and the rollover budgets, but planning for the unexpected is a part of oversight. So I see people kind of, like I said, make a budget that assumes all will go well, with whether that's when they're calculating how much can we afford for a house or a car, or just their general budget, but they've added $100 a month for healthcare. Well, that doesn't usually cut the butter when some kid falls off the swing set and breaks their arm and needs a pin put in it and all that jazz. Suddenly we have a $4,000 hospital bill. You know, so if this is you, you're set as long as the sailing is smooth, but your budget gets busted when the air conditioner goes out and you have an unexpected expense. So I think that planning for this is actually a part of maintaining the health of your overall herd, if you will. I see a lot of real estate investors that are young and they haven't been through a difficult cycle. They get really excited about, well, I'm just accumulating more properties and it's going great. And then I go, well, where's your reserve for when you have, like I did in my
Yes.
very first rental property, a tenant that maybe trashes your whole house, and when they move, they steal all the appliances and end up in jail before you can recover. Um,
Yeah.
and that's just you put the whole real estate's a good example. You put the whole herd of rental homes at risk if you don't appropriately reserve and manage for the unexpected, because you can find yourself very quickly in a situation where, well, I thought they were going to all stay fully rented all the time, and now I've got a problem. I owe 3 mortgage payments and I'm only getting 1 mortgage worth of rent. What do I
Yep.
do? So understanding taxes is a big part of this. A lot of people, they sell a business or they have a windfall, or maybe they just sell some investments and they have no idea what the tax bill will be. So they say, well, I don't know, maybe 15%. I'm going to put 15% aside. And then when the bill comes at tax time, they're pinched and they owe a whole lot more than that. Or they're so terrified of taxes, they think, well, I've heard it can be 60%. I don't know. And they stick a massive amount of money in cash on the side and miss out on important returns and kind of diligent management of their assets because they're not aware of what this potential unexpected expense might be, and they miss out that way. So I think tax is a whole topic that's a key piece of understanding the condition of your flocks. I don't know. We have a couple minutes that I could just give you a quick primer on what I think. If you are thinking, well, I do TurboTax, it seems okay, but I've always wondered, should I hire somebody?
Yeah. Hit us.
I think that there's a huge difference between tax filing and tax preparation versus tax planning. And
Mm,
most people do not work with a tax planner. They work with a tax preparer. Um,
big difference.
Meaning that they're happy to do your taxes, and they might even, when they do your taxes, go, hey, I found a way for us to save $700, and you're delighted by that. Tax planning says over the next 20 years, I'm understanding, going back to step one, the plan for the long term. And I might recommend that you spend more on taxes right now because I'm going to save you a lot over time. And I'm thinking about your family vision, and hey, the norm would be to do this, but because you, Manuel family, are thinking about a totally different path for your lives, we're not going to do that because that'll have some tax consequences that don't make sense for you guys. We're not going to save in a tax advantaged retirement account because you guys are thinking we're going abroad in 5 years, and
Right.
we're going to totally do something different here. And so you just need to be aware of who you're working with. This is not to say you shouldn't pay somebody to do your taxes. That's totally fine. But don't think that because you're paying a CPA to do your taxes, that's the same thing as planning around really understanding the long-term picture of what's our tax situation going to look like. I would say you have to have oversight on your flocks. So if we want to talk about your investment accounts and your assets, but you also need to have oversight over the shepherds that you hire for your flocks. And that's part of becoming an Abrahamic family leader. So it's not just that I'm able to directly do things, it's also
Yes.
that I know how to do good due diligence and find excellent people who can help me oversee, and they can be a key part of this role. Because as your assets grow, the odds are, you may not need a financial planner, you may not need a CPA or a lawyer or all sorts of things, but the odds are you will need some of these people on your team. You're probably not going to be the one person doing everything. You may be great at the money stuff, but you need help on maintaining the home, whatever. And you need to be good at vetting and really understanding, how do I find somebody that's good? How do I decide whether I can trust them? And how do I regularly check in on them in a way that's not paranoid or distrustful, but says, I know how to do due diligence and I do it regularly on the people that I have entrusted to oversee my flocks.
Yeah. Just one last thought on that, because what people can be in charge of is so disparate. I think of myself, I have a lot of little irons in a lot of little fires. And a financial advisor would give us some help on some of that stuff. You've got your mortgage person that's making sure that you're looking good there, and you've got your let's say you've got a property manager because you own some real estate or whatever. It seems like a simple idea, but to have a spreadsheet that you come back to year after year, and you just check in on, you just have some metrics for what does our savings look like? What does our retirement look like? And I know an advisor would help you with a lot of these things, but how is my real estate property doing? When are we going to need a new roof? How are our cars doing? What's our education savings look like? Just to have some place where there's a summary statement where you can just go, I know how things are. I just know where things are, as opposed to you can just feel like you're just so frazzled trying to collect all of these little bits. To have something that is a central thing. This is one thing that we do at our summit at the end of the year with my wife. I'll just say that because we believe in planning and goals, Abraham's Wallet every year creates, for our people, for our listeners, we create this little weekend retreat for you to go away with your spouse and for you to kind of summarize what has happened in the last year and make goals for what's going to happen in the next year. That's a place for us to look at where are our sheep? What's the condition of our flocks over the last year? And we try to do as high level as we can. We try to do the 30,000 foot view. How is everything doing? Are we happy with our children's education? Are we happy with our income? Are we happy with the work that we're doing, et cetera, et cetera? So anyways, it's just one thought, that keeping all of that stuff somewhere that you can come back to year after year is a great way of keeping tabs. I even put I'll put my weight on there, and I just call it, we have a spreadsheet which is Manual Family Assets. And my body is one of my assets. So I keep track of that over the years. How's my body doing? And, you could put whatever on there is important to you, but it's something that we track that way.
Yeah, that's good. And I think, just to take us to the finish, you said that you're just, and this is true, you have a few irons and a few different fires. You like to spread some of your labor into different ventures.
Dabbler.
And one of those ventures right now, I know maybe I'm jumping the gun by announcing this, but one of those ventures is that you are working on some really cool design updates to Abraham's Wallet.
Oh.
And a part of that will be that we are going to offer merchandise to the listeners at some point.
It's true.
And I don't know. I'm thinking Proverbs 27:23. I'm seeing an Abrahamic dude sitting like in a beach chair in front of a bunch of sheep, and it says something like, "I know the condition of my flock." But I don't know. I'm just throwing out a little bit of creative inspiration for you.
Yeah, I like it. We have one of our, I would say one of our top 10 listeners is a guy named Mike. And Mike is always spinning out these ideas for us that come from podcasts. And I like Mike thinking that way, because I enjoy thinking of, what are we going to make someday? What are the cool things we could make?
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to Abraham kind of in his Adirondack chair overseeing sheep. But
absolutely,
if it makes the final cut, we shall see.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks, Steven. Until next week, we'll continue on the path of critical skills next time with multiplication.
Excellent. Okay, thanks, Mark.
Hey, I want to throw a little spotlight on Cleaner Soaps and Sundries. They're a men's personal care brand run by a great guy, CT, who makes cleaner products and does a ton of good for vets along the way. I had tacos with this special ops dude turned entrepreneur in Texas and knew right away this brand is something our listeners are going to love to support. I think you're going to dig the soaps and deodorants and pomades and beard oils, all made from totally natural based ingredients. I use them and I love them. So find all their great stuff at KLENR.com. That's cleaner.com. And if you type in AW, you'll get an automatic 10% discount on whatever you find. So check them out.